Welcome to Mindful School Marketing, your go-to podcast for personal and professional growth.
We're school marketers, business owners, and moms passionate about connecting other school professionals with tools and strategies for success.
We love solving problems, exploring new ideas, and thinking outside the box. Let's transform your school and life starting right now. Transform your school's admissions and marketing with Inquiry Tracker, the ultimate solution for managing inquiries seamlessly. Discover how you can make your admissions process more efficient and effective with this leading solution. Welcome to Mindful School Marketing. I'm Aubrey Bursch.
And I'm Tara Clays. Today we're joined by Barb Doyle. Barb is the Director of Marketing and Communications at Renbrook School, a preschool through grade 8 school in West Hartford, Connecticut. She has a diverse background with more than 25 years of marketing, graphic design, operations, and leadership experience in education, healthcare, and publishing. Welcome, Barb. It's so great to see you.
It's so great to see you, Tara and Aubrey. I'm so excited to be here with you today. Thanks for asking me to join you.
Yes, Barb, we are so excited that you're here today, and we can't wait to dive into this topic that we're discussing here today. But before we get started, we'd love for you to share with our audience a little bit more about yourself and maybe your role at school.
Sure. Well, as Tara mentioned, I'm the Director of Marketing and Communications at Renbrook School in West Hartford, Connecticut. We are very fortunate to sit on a beautiful 75-acre campus on top of Avon Mountain. It's a wonderful place to spend your days. And I have a long history in marketing, graphic design, and administration in both education and healthcare. I also have a small consulting marketing business that I run, and I've spent the last 9 years in independent school marketing. So I am a department of 1.5 here at Renbrook, so I'm a small shop, which I know a lot of your listeners can relate to. So my roles really span a wide berth of different responsibilities.
Yes, you and I have worked together. And I've been to your
Yes.
beautiful campus. It is a wonderful school. And we're so grateful to you for joining us today. We hear questions about different things. And specifically, we've had questions about what's involved in a website redesign. And while I could talk about this by myself for hours, since it's what I do for a living, we thought it would be helpful to have information from someone who works within a school, from your perspective, about doing a website redesign. I also really miss seeing you since your website launched, and it's a good excuse for me to chat with you too, Barb. But let's start with the big first question, which is, how often should a school redesign their website, and how do they know when it's time?
Okay, well, thanks, Tara. I miss seeing you too. We had a good run there of seeing each other very often, and now we go too long in between. So it's a great question. And I think the answer is relatively complex because it depends on many factors. So I don't think it's just a cut and dry sort of thing. General marketing industry standards say that you should redesign maybe every 2 to 3 years, but I'm not sure that's always realistic in independent schools. As we touched on already, we tend to have small, rather under-resourced departments, and we're wearing a lot of different hats. So having the bandwidth to redesign might be an issue for people. I absolutely think that we all need a very solid refresh every year. And that, is, even if we don't need a full redesign, the refresh can be something that we all need a hand with. So I think, obviously content needs to remain fresh and accurate, and SEO has to be driving results. And it should be on your regular to-do list to refresh all the time. But a full redesign, I think in independent schools in particular, is probably more realistic around the 5-year level, is what I have found. From the time I raised the idea of a need for a redesign with my head of school and others on our leadership team until the time that we launched was almost 2 years. So you really need to do this in steps, right? It's not a quick fix sort of thing. You asked, in addition, when do you know that it's time? And I found that there are some clear warning signs that you should look for, and ask questions of yourself, right? Does your site look outdated? Design trends change really rapidly these days. And if you're really if you don't look fresh and bright and welcoming, it is a factor in how long people stay with you and peruse your site. What's the user experience like for your visitors, right? Get some feedback from your newest families who have just gone through that process and find out what worked for them and what didn't work for them. Is your target audience accurate? I can't tell you how many times I see this in independent schools. So many schools try to be a website for both their prospective families and their current families, and it gets all muddy in there. So, we made the choice, that was the case with our website, but we made the choice to really make it a front-facing, marketing serving website for prospective families. So that, I think that's a big question that you need to ask. Certainly, what are your analytics telling you? Are parents spending significant time with you? Or are they bouncing off really quickly? Can they find what they need? How are you ranking in organic searches? So these are some of the questions that I asked myself when we started this process, and that was helpful to me.
Yeah, I think those are great points. I also want to add that sometimes when it's too challenging for your team to make edits to your website, and that's, when the software is out of date, or when just the management on the back end is not smooth and easy, and it's really frustrating, that's a good sign that you need to make some changes on the back end just to streamline the process, right?
Mm-hmm. And that was the case for us too, because it really, I use the term buggy all the time, where we were, it was buggy and it wasn't working well for us. So good point.
Yeah, I've been with many schools, and when they're talking about their site, they're like, I tried to upload this one thing and it threw off everything else. So yes, that's always the challenge. And that's one of the red flags for maybe you do need a website redesign. Shifting gears a little bit, like, let's say you've decided like, it's time to change your website. What are the next steps? Like, where did you go from there? Was it finding funding, getting proposals? Yeah. What did your school do once they knew it was time to build a website?
Yes. As I mentioned earlier, I knew 2 years ago that I needed to start this journey. So I actually started the process a little unconventionally, and I'll throw this out there because it worked really well for me. I knew that if I was going to manage the build of a new site, that I really needed good photo and video content. And my time was going to be really taken up with the rebuild of this site. And would I have time to do those things as well? So the first thing that I did, I'm knowing that the wheels of change can grind slowly and I would have time on this. During that first year, I planned and managed 2 photo shoots and a video shoot. So the video shoot was actually a 6-day video shoot, capturing, as many aspects of the day-to-day learning as I could. I captured probably about 25 testimonials from parents, students, alumni, faculty, and even secondary school admission officers who accept Renbrook students. The professional video shoots, again, very detailed and planned out. One was a full day of organic shooting, and then the other one was very intentionally staged to capture particular scenarios. Like, what did we want to show on our leadership page? What did we want to show on our, building, character building and social emotional learning? What images would really tell those stories? So we spent a lot of time doing that. The next was research. And I'll say research. So there was a lot of research. There are a lot of choices out there. And I reached out to colleagues. I'm very lucky to have a great group of colleagues in Connecticut through the Connecticut Association of Independent Schools. I run the Marketing and Roundtable Communications Group. So we meet every 2 weeks. And one of the things that's wonderful for us is we consider ourselves colleagues before competitors. So we share a tremendous amount of information with one another. And I talk to all of my peers, to say, what are you doing? What are you using? What's your CMS at this point? Who's using Blackbaud? Who's using Final Site? I'm very interested in WordPress because I think it's going to give me a lot more flexibility. And it became clear to me very early on that a WordPress site was going to be far more flexible and more cost effective for us. So, but then I had questions too. Would it be compatible with our SIS? Because we stayed with Blackbaud in the back end. So I had to make sure that everything was going to sync in that area. And then once I had all my facts and figures, that's when I brought it back to my leadership team. I am a member of the leadership team. There are 10 of us that sit on that team, and everyone was in agreement that pursuing a WordPress website was definitely the way to go. So my next phase was then vetting designers, and I did a lot of work on that. I landed on 3 possible agencies after doing more research, spent time with each one individually, and then had the final 2 meet with my entire team and present to my entire team. We chose Tara. So she's a gem. She's an expert in her field. an expert in independent school WordPress websites, and she knows our industry. So it was really a win-win for us. She was not afraid to redirect us when she felt we were going down a path that we shouldn't be going down, and should redirect us to the best choice and right fit for us. So overall, she was just a really good fit. And that's so important because you spend an inordinate amount of time together in the design phase. So that was kind of my trajectory.
That's very kind. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So
Well
I'm
deserved.
yes, it is. She's amazing. So I'm curious, like, if I'm a school, because we're working with lots of schools and they're like, you know what, our website's not quite doing it, but you know, we could probably hold on for 2 more years, like 2 more years. Like, what was that runway like? So if I'm looking at budgets, like, and we know this is gonna be, you know, we're doing the research here and it's coming out of the next year's budget or something, like, how did you work that? And would you say it's like looking 2 years in advance and then setting the budget and making sure that you have the funds? Because there's a lot of components like messaging for a website. There's also potentially the refresh of photos and videos so that you have really great content on the website, all that. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Sure. So in my planning, I kept that photo video a little bit separate. I used, really looked at what my resources were and really planned for the year that I was going to do those, kept that as a separate budget item. I didn't do that in the midst of my website budget item. And I must say that quite honestly, we knew we were going to have to do this. So we knew we would kind of find the money somewhere, right? But that's not always the case. But I have to say that this saved us money. So it was a no-brainer. Had we done a redo with Blackbaud, which we knew we needed to do a redo no matter what, right? Had we done a redo with Blackbaud, it was going to cost us a whole lot more. Had we flipped over to Final Site, that was going to be a huge ticket. With working with a WordPress site, I have the flexibility in the back-end management that I need. I don't have those buggy problems that I was having. And it cost me less than it would have for many of the large vendors. So that part of it, not a direct answer to your question, Aubrey, because I think, I knew that was going to work out in our favor. So that was a pretty easy hurdle to get over.
Yeah. And I think, even for schools that maybe have more budget or less budget, those are the questions that they're going to be asking, right? If you have a bigger budget and you want to work with, a proprietary software for your website, you're still going to go through this review process and budget process. And you're still going to have a budget for photos and videos and those types of things. Or if you don't have it, then you have to plan for what you're going to use instead. So I think, whether you're using WordPress or something else, that part of the planning is really essential to look at the different software options and see what the pluses and minuses are of using a proprietary platform or using something that's more open source, which will save you money, but maybe you don't have the bandwidth to manage it, or you want everything all in one place. So I think that makes sense. So and having worked with you, I know you and I both are like master organizers and spreadsheet fans. And it really helps. It really helps to be organized, right? It really helps to, I think, to keep your strategy in mind with everything that you're doing, underscoring that, and then having a really, a really excellent way to manage all the content that you're putting together. And so for you as a coordinator, can you share some tips with people on how to do that? Because you're obviously not the only person who's invested in what content is going on the site. You are the main conduit, right? That works with the agency, which is how it usually works. But you're hearing from a lot of people, and that's got to be really challenging to take a lot of opinions and condense them down to give direction to the agency that you're working with. So would you share what that process was like for you and how you kept it organized and made those decisions?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I am a spreadsheet lover. So, a lot of that was going on from the very beginning of the photo and video shoots. I had spreadsheets for those, I had planning for those. And I talked with constituents. I talked with some of our stakeholders. I talked with, people that make up our personas and, to really see what it was that resonated with them and did the planning on that. But we did, I would say we did our planning meetings and focus groups over a period of about a year. So this was like I said, 2-year process for us overall. We started out with really just members of our leadership team, not the whole team either. It was myself, my head of school, our academic leaders. So we have 3 divisions: beginning school, lower school, and upper school, and then our director of enrollment. And we met numerous times to map out kind of the key components of what we felt needed to be on the new site. We had way too much text on our old site. We had way too many pages that went way too deep. And we spent a lot of time talking about the story that we wanted to be telling in 2023 and beyond. Our academic leaders did the majority of the content writing for their divisions. They're all excellent writers, and I was very fortunate in that. And my head of school is also an excellent writer and has, a definitive voice. So we expanded that group a few times to include our CFO, our director of development, our IT people, and athletics. But, that was important to bring them in, but we didn't need all of those people all the time. That would have been too unruly, really. So the bulk of the work was done by the smaller group. Next, we did some focus groups. And when we did that, we pulled in board members, parents, alumni, along with that core group. And that was really helpful to have the perspective of those people as well. So we worked during that time on really clearly defining our pillars, what are our points of excellence, what differentiates us, and we got some great feedback and support on our decisions there. Once we were in the design phase, when I was working with Tara, the core group really came down to just myself, my head of school, and my director of enrollment management. That team of 3, we were really the core group. But I was the point person for Tara. One of the things that I like about the way she does the work is we're not meeting in groups all the time. It's kind of too many cooks in the kitchen kind of thing. It can slow down the process sometimes. So, we had numerous meetings that included Matt, my head of school, Amy, my director of enrollment, and myself. But then when it came to the guts of it, then it was just Tara and I. So that worked well for me to have those tiers of people around me and supporting me and doing it, but not having everybody try to be present for every single decision. That really worked well.
Yes, having too many cooks in the kitchen can really slow things down, right?
Okay.
Now, I'm gonna ask this next question. I'm gonna ask that you don't sugarcoat it because Tara's here, but she's always honest about everything. What do you think the biggest challenge was during or any website redesign process? Because I know you've done several, so I'm very curious as what you thought the biggest challenge was.
Okay, well, Tara knows that I'm very direct too and very honest. So, and she also knows my biggest challenge certainly wasn't her. So that's good. I think the hardest part for me was having a fair number of people involved that don't really understand the parameters of building a website. So we have a running joke here at Renbrook where I say to members of my team, did you just say, what if we just do this? It's like, what if we just, no, it doesn't work that way, folks. So they often want me to add more or, creating clutter on a page, or they saw something on another website and they think that we can just magically do it, but it would cost a fortune to do. So I spent a lot of time, the way I found it worked best was if I presented the ideas to Tara, she was endlessly patient with me and she would give me a good technical answer to bring back to the team as to why that kind of thing is not going to work. So I would say that was the biggest challenge, was that there was a significant amount of time spent on explaining people why we can't just do X, Y, Z,
Yeah, that's really interesting. And it's not unusual, right? And I think that's a benefit of working with an agency that knows what they're doing, because they can back up what you're saying. Sometimes your internal team, not that they don't trust you and have faith in you, but sometimes hearing it from an outside expert, like makes that light bulb go off, like, oh yes, I see, that's why we can't do that, right? Or there's that's going to be a bad user experience, or here's what some research shows about centering your logo, or those types of things are helpful to have somebody to back you up on that. So yeah, I can
absolutely
understand that.
And it takes that emotional component out of it. I think that those of us who are here, we love this school, right? And sometimes we can't get past that emotional piece of we just want people to see this,
Right.
and we really need to get back to what's the purpose? What are our goals?
Yeah. Yeah.
So.
Yeah. That's a longstanding conversation in the agency world, even back 30 years ago when I worked for an ad agency, where the client always wants to say all the great things about their product or their thing. But most of the time, those are not the things that the actual consumer is looking for. It's not the problem that they're looking to solve. So yeah, that's very true.
Exactly.
On the flip side, I'm curious to know, what was your favorite part of the website redesign process? I mean, you're a great designer and you were super helpful, more than any client I've ever worked with, in photo editing and all of that, because you have all those tools and skills. But, what was the thing that you liked the best, and did anything surprise you about the process?
Okay. So the thing I liked the best, I am fortunate to have a graphic design background. So I love doing the design work. That's what makes me tick. I like, being in there and manipulating and creating. And so that was great that I had the opportunity to do that in this process. I also had a library of countless photos and videos, which was, and Tara allowed me to have full control over that. And that was wonderful. I'm also about organization, as Tara said before, and I loved the approach that the team took with a very vibrant spreadsheet where you could put your fingers on anything you needed. I don't care who you work with. This was probably the best tool that came through in the process for me. So I could find it, and I still refer to it on a daily, several times a week basis. It might be that I'm putting a new photo somewhere. Oh, what was the size of that photo? I can go right to that spreadsheet, and still I don't have to keep all that in my head. And it's all right there for me for a lifetime. So it was great. So the shared docs, the shared folders, all of that, it just made the organization seamless. And that I was really grateful for that. Surprised me, I would say, is a positive. And I don't mean to be too flowery here and make this all about Tara, but that's who I worked with. So that's my experience. But
I'm so glad we had you on this podcast, Barb.
Well, the truth is that you and your team were fabulous about working with my other platforms and vendors. That for me, that was the surprise piece for me. It was so refreshing because I was worried about that part. So in small marketing departments, you're only as strong as your vendor partnerships, right? We all know that. And I work with Angie Ward of Enroll Media Group for my digital marketing. I work with, and she also supports me in analytics and SEO. We use Inquiry Tracker for our enrollment management platform at the inquiry phase, yet we use Blackbaud at the application phase and admission phase of our enrollment, and for our full SIS. So you've got all these pieces, all of the puzzle, and Tara and her team worked directly with every one of my vendor partners and just made it seamless. It was really great. We had a few blips here and there that Tom had to write some code for us, and we needed Tara to troubleshoot something, but Tara and team managed it all, and that was incredibly helpful and such a pleasant surprise for me. That was one of my biggest worries going into it. So I would say that's it.
That's amazing. I know, first of all, being organized is half the battle, I think. So I'm curious, we know many schools right now that are talking like, now is the time to redesign our website. It's in desperate needs. Like, we got through COVID and now we're ready for game on. So what advice would you give to a school who's thinking about a website redesign or refresh in the coming year?
Start now. Get started. Really do your research well. I think that you are just in a tremendously better position if you really do your research and begin working on your content long before you choose your vendor. So really do that back end work, because if you're trying to do that at the same time that you're trying to build, it's just too much to ask of anyone, and still do the regular day-to-day work that you've got to get done in the office. So I think plan out your focus groups now, think about who's going to be involved, and start to ask people. And, people get busy. So January, February, those are good times of year to pull people in when it's after the hubbub of the holidays and all of that. Start sitting down with people and getting some ideas and getting some feelings. I would also say, review every single page of and create yourself a spreadsheet. Review every page of your website. Look at your sitemap and really drill down on what you're going to take with you and what you're not. because most of us, when we go to do a redesign, find that we're not going to take everything with us that we had before. It's not where people are today. The people look so quickly at websites that you've got to hit them quickly and cleanly right off the bat. And we want to say, we talk too much. We say too much. So I would say those are the first things to look at. Your work with your vendor can be done in a matter of months. It's your pre-work that I think is the time is now. If you're looking at that, kick it off.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. This has been so informative and helpful, and I feel so good about myself. You've made my day.
Oh, good.
And I know also one of the fun things when we first started working together is that you already were a listener of this podcast. So you know that we also talk about mindfulness here. And so, and how it applies to your life, our lives as school marketers, many of us as women. So how do you define mindfulness, Barb, and how did mindfulness come into play for you during your website redesign process?
Sure. I love that question, Tara. Mindfulness is a part of every day for me. I think that, we work in an area, school marketing can be stressful and it can be demanding, and a website redesign in particular can be all consuming. So I take a step back when I'm overwhelmed. Sometimes I just have to walk away from my desk and go for that walk. As I mentioned at the beginning, we are on beautiful 75 acres. And there are countless places to go for a quick walk. And when it's cold or the weather's lousy, I can walk the halls, and that's fine too. So that's kind of my go-to to do that. And usually I do that. I do what I call walk and learn. So I put my AirPods in and I listen to people like you girls on your podcast as I take a little break. So I think that's one. And I don't just do it when my stress is climbing. I start my day on my commute in the morning. I know I'm a little earthy, crunchy, and strange, but I do some breathing on my way in, just really, particular focused breathing to just create a calm mindset for myself for the day. This is a busy place with a lot of activity and lots of little bodies running around. So that's just how I approach my day.
And as a school leader, it's so important to walk into your day with that foundation that you just talked about.
Yes.
I mean, you never know what's going to come at you.
No.
So I love that. Thank you so much for sharing. I'm going to transition us to one of my favorite segments of our program, which is the rapid fire questions. So are you ready for rapid fire?
I'm ready for rapid fire.
Great. I'm going to kick us off. If you could put one book as mandatory reading in the high school curriculum, what would it be?
I know you've had this answer before because I listened to you. But it would be anything on financial management. It is such a missing key point for kids in high school. Even the Rich Dad, Poor Dad series is a great series of books. And he has a relatively new, well, it's actually not new, but the one for teens is a good one that he talks about the secrets of money and what's his name? Robert Kiyosaki. I think that's a great one. It's very digestible for kids. Yeah.
Thank you. Great. Yes, financial literacy is something we hear a lot on this question. Okay, next question. What's one app you couldn't live without?
Easy. Audible. I love my Audible app. I have a 50-minute commute and I listen to Audible in my car every day.
I'm right there with you. Love the
Yes.
Audible.
Did you know that Spotify has audiobooks now, though?
Oh,
you can
no,
get them
I
on
did
Spotify.
not.
If you have the premium plan on Spotify, you can get full audiobooks there, so you don't have to pay for Audible. Little tip.
I'm writing it
for you.
down. Thanks for the tip.
I don't know
Tara.
if it's forever or not, but I just paused my Audible subscription.
Oh,
I
no
can get them on
kidding.
Spotify. Yeah.
Okay, good to know.
That's
Yeah.
Interesting. Thanks for sharing. Look, we're all getting all sorts of tips now.
Right.
Maybe your app will change next time we talk to you. Who knows? All right. And let's see. What are you reading right now?
I always have two books going. So one is my book club book and one is something personal for like something that, self-awareness, that kind of thing. So for my spiritual sort of book, I'm listening to the Energy Codes, the 7-step system to awaken your spirit, heal your body, and live your best life by Dr. Sue Morter. And I'm enjoying that. And then my book club, we just finished The Secret Book of Flora Lee by Patty Callahan Henry. Wonderful book about a woman who discovers a rare book that has, connections to her past and her missing sister. And it tells the story of their childhood spent in the English countryside during World War II. So, so that was a fun read. So I love my book club. That gives me my chance to read fun stuff. So
Yeah, very fun. Okay, I'm going to
Mhm.
look this up. Thank you.
yes.
All right, last question. I know you've given us a lot of advice, but let's just do an overarching. What's one great piece of advice you'd like to leave us with today?
I would say it is develop a tribe in your field. That has been, I've been in this business for a long time. And one of the things that has always been most powerful to me is having colleagues that I can count on and I can lean on. I mentioned it earlier, the marketing roundtables for Connecticut Association of Independent Schools. And one of the things that I say at the beginning of every academic year as we start to get back together is, you are my competitors. I apologize. You are my colleagues before you are my competitors. We have so much that we can learn from one another. Parents are going to make their decisions, but I have found my wonderful vendor partners through this, my colleagues in that group. They make me stronger. They make me a better marketer. They make me a better person. So find your tribe.
That's such great advice. I mean, and we can't do this alone. That's just not, we can't do it. So I thank you so much for sharing that. That's something all our schools leaders need to have for sure.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you. Thanks so much for joining us. Where can people find you online, Barb?
Oh gosh, well, you can find me personally on LinkedIn at Barb Doyle. It's actually Barb Spencer Doyle. But I would say come to renbrook.org and check out our website. That's where you can find me. It's awesome. We're really happy with it.
Great.
Thank you so much, Barb. We're
Thanks,
so
Barb.
appreciative of
Thank
you.
you.
Have a great day.
Such a pleasure to be with you guys. Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Bye.
This episode is brought to you by Enquiry Tracker. We believe that every inquiry is an opportunity, and with Enquiry Tracker, you can unlock the full potential of your school's enrollment journey.
Say goodbye to missed opportunities and hello to a streamlined admissions process that prioritizes efficiency and effectiveness. Discover the leading solution for school admissions and marketing. Visit inquirytracker.net to book a personalized demo today. That's inquiry with an E, tracker.net.
Thanks for joining us on the Mindful School Marketing Podcast.
We'd love it if you pop into iTunes and leave a review, 5-star preferred. Let us know how you like the show. It helps us improve what we're doing and helps others find us too.